Welcome to Financial Flight Academy with John Schuetz and Brent Connelly from Soar Wealth Strategies. In this podcast, we inspire families and business owners to build a foundation for their financial future. We do this by listening and building trust with our clients. Join us for this journey where we explore ways to protect your nest and live out your dreams as John and Brent draw from years of experience and guest experts to help you take that leap of faith.
Well, welcome to Financial Flight Academy. I'm John Schuetz, along with my co-host, Brent Connelly.
Hello, how's everyone doing out there?
I hope well. Our guest today, I think you're going to enjoy this one, even though he's an attorney. This guy left his home in California, just $1,000 in his pocket, a Chevy Blazer and a dream. It's Nick Montague. Nick, welcome to Financial Flight Academy.
Well, thanks. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, talk with you guys today. The story is not as exciting as the title there, but we'll go through it. So
we'll decide that.
Yeah, you guys can make that judgment.
If you feel the need to embellish, please do so.
All right.
Well, Nick is with a partner at Smith Pauley law firm, right, located here in Omaha, Nebraska. And if you ever wondered how to get your hard-earned assets transferred to loved ones efficiently, maybe you've had a family member involved in a probate situation after someone passed away. These are a few of the things, the concerns that Nick deals with on a daily basis, and things that we work with our clients here at Soar Wealth Strategies on. And Brent, I know that you and Nick have worked together for quite some time.
We have, gosh, I think it's been over 8 years now. And I've told this to clients in the past. If I wasn't doing the job I was doing right now, I would honestly love to be an estate planning attorney, because the way that you can help families protect assets and give them that peace of mind, it really is unbelievable. So, Nick, let's just start off the beginning here. Let's jump into your childhood. It sounds like that you grew up in California. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yep, I was born in Sacramento, California. I was there until I was about 12 years old. There were 7 of us living in about a 900 square foot house there. And mom came home one day and said, "Dad, it's time to make a little money and a little more." And so he changed careers, and that's sort of what uprooted us from California, and our journeys began. But ended up in Oregon for about a year and a half. He went back to be a heart perfusionist. So in open heart surgery, he performed, operated a machine that helped people stay alive and pump their blood and clean their blood and all that stuff. And so in order to do that, we went to Oregon so he had a little more schooling there. And from there, landed in Arkansas. It was his first job out of that particular school where he got his degree, and landed in Arkansas, where it turned into my home, and I love to this day. Is kind of how I got there originally. And then from there, I was there for, I'd say, 7th grade to halfway through junior year of high school, at which point in time we decided to migrate back to California. So I did a full loop in the matter of 7 or 8 years, whatever it was.
Is this where we do the woo pig suey?
Yeah. Are we going to call the hogs today?
You certainly can.
Yeah. I would prefer not. Although I will say, Nick, University of Arkansas is where you call the hogs, for those who are not familiar with that. And it did provide the most uncomfortable moment I ever witnessed in my sports broadcasting career, when Dana Altman took the head basketball coaching job for one day and had that look on his face when they called the hogs of, "What did I just do?"
Yeah, not sure why that isn't part of the interview process. Coming here, you got to call the hogs, or otherwise forget about it.
We've got some roots together. I think about Arkansas, the College World Series, growing up there, going to those games with my grandfather, wonderful fan base. And I know that there's a little teaser here about the College World Series and your wife. And so we've got some similar experiences there. So, So you grew up in California, moved back to Arkansas, then went back to California. Tell us a little bit how, start from like high school there and what kind of, changed there.
Yeah. So I got there, I would say February of junior year. So just about going into senior year. And, high school is a tough time for anybody, and moving like that is a difficult situation. But luckily I played sports. So I played baseball, and I was reasonable at it. And I made the team. So that's
better than me.
So I was able to get in with the team, and sports kind of got me through those next 18 months or 22 months, however long I was there, through the end of high school. I was able to develop some friendships and relationships there around sports. Always knowing in my mind that California wasn't going to be on the long term. I wasn't going to be there for any longer than I had to be, because in my mind, Arkansas was home, and I wanted to get back there as soon as I could. And And so, got through high school, graduated, and then it was, hey, what's next? It's time to go to school.
So we always like to talk to people about those formative years. What was money like? What kind of jobs did you have growing up?
Yeah, I started with a little restaurant that no longer exists called Goldie's. And I Goldie's.
Were you part of the reason it doesn't exist?
It might have been. I was just washing dishes though, so I don't know.
Okay.
But I started at Goldie's and worked there for a while. And once baseball and all that started, I didn't really work through the rest of high school. It was after when I graduated and parents said, okay, where are you going to college? And they said, we'd like for you to go somewhere in California. And I said, I would not like to go somewhere here in California. And so we were kind of at a standstill there. And so I didn't go to college right out of high school. I graduated and started working immediately at Home Depot, driving forklifts for about 18 months. Yeah. And loved it. Driving forklifts is an absolute blast if you get an opportunity. Okay. So I did that. And then during day, and then I worked it out back at night. And so I was waiting tables and bussing tables and bartending and all that kind of stuff. Right after high school there.
Probably nice to have a few bucks in your pocket. Yep.
A few bucks. That's right. If you we get out of high school, $10 is a few bucks, so it's one of those things where you live with your folks, you don't have any debt. It's,
okay. So mom and dad want to keep their son local. Right. You have Arkansas roots, right. Talk a little bit about how you convinced mom and dad that, hey, I really need to go back to where I feel comfortable.
Yeah. For better or worse, I'd say it wasn't much of a convincing, I tried, senior year of high school, it was okay. I want to go back to Arkansas. I want to go there to school. And they just weren't having it. They just didn't want me to go. I mean, they're a little boy and 2,000 miles and all those unknowns. Right. Mm-hmm. And then we got to that standstill after high school and just said, look, I'm not going to go to school here. So I worked for a little while. And at one point I did go to a junior college there for one semester. I gave it a go and I thought, well, I'm here. I better try. But after that semester, it just didn't feel right. And so I finally sat them down. I said, I know this is not what you want me to do. I know this is not what you want for my life, but this is what I'm going to do. And so that's kind of how the conversation went. It wasn't a slow drip on him. It was like, okay, I'm leaving in 2 weeks.
So we always talk about that leap of faith that people take on their path to success. What was your plan and how did you prepare for that move back to Arkansas?
Not much of a plan. I mean, it was let's pack it.
Those are the best plans.
That's right. Let's pack and go. There was a specific date I needed to be there. So I wanted to go to the University of Arkansas. And I wanted to pay in-state tuition because out-of-state tuition was, $20,000 a year, whatever it was. So I had to be there by a particular date in February to get 6 months in prior to the start of the next semester to get that in-state tuition. So I dropped the date. I had to be there. And once I established what that date was, it was a month before I told my parents I was leaving. I don't know when it was, that time frame, but it was a very, very short time frame. Once I realized I have to be here now, otherwise I'm going to pay 3 times as much. And so I just had to be there by a particular date. And so that was my main driving goal was, okay, we got to get there now. How I'm going to do it. And it was tough talking to my parents. I mean, we sat down and it was a hard conversation. Mm-hmm. Look, we don't support this. We support you, but we don't support this move. And you're kind of on your own to do it. And, if I ever failed, there was no doubt I could walk back in that door and they'd accept me open arms and the whole thing. But in my mind, failure wasn't an option. It was this is where I want to be and this is what's going to happen. And whatever it takes, I will do it. And, packed up and, had everything I had in the U-Haul and the Blazer, like the title here, I had $1,000 in my pocket in the Blazer and that was it. And I filled up the U-Haul with, I had a desk and my TV and a twin mattress bed and that was about it. And,
wow.
Some memories and packed out the driveway and took off. So it was a tearful experience, to say the least, with my family there. And they all, missed me leaving and all those things, but just one of those deals that, looking back, I don't know if I could do it again, to be honest with you.
How long did it take you to drive cross country?
Oh, I think I did it in 4 days. My goal was to get out of the state day one. So I left. We're in Stockton. I drove until I hit the line and then I might've stayed over too. And it was funny. It's the first time I'd ever rented a hotel room. And I thought, wow, I'm like a real adult now. I got my hotel room and
wow.
I think I made it in 3 days when I finally got out there.
Okay. All right. So you applied to Arkansas and it sounds like from our previous conversation, you met all the metrics, but tell me what that experience was like right away.
Yeah, so I had the application. So they have particular, GPA and all those different metrics. And if you hit a particular one, if you're in state there, it's automatic acceptance. At least it was back then. So I had hit all those metrics. I'd applied, but I hadn't got a result yet. So I didn't actually know that I was accepted into the school. I just knew that's where I wanted to be. And I had to be there by this date if I was ultimately accepted and wanted to pay in-state tuition. So, I took off not knowing if I was going to be in school or not for that first semester. And the plan B was there were some community colleges there around that I would have been in for a year or two until I got in. But luckily I got there and I got the letter pretty short thereafter that I had been accepted. And
okay.
So I got in.
Now you did some oddball jobs, it sounds like, too. You were a apartment maintenance man, is that correct?
So lack of plan, like we talked about earlier, there wasn't much of a plan, right? So I showed up in town and I stayed at one of my best friends growing up, neighbor for a bunch of years, 4 or 5 years down there. I stayed at her parents' house for about 10 days. I didn't have an apartment, didn't have anything. So I just had a couch at their house and the U-Haul parked out front. And another friend of mine had set me up with
kept the U-Haul.
Of course I did.
Yeah, wait, so yeah, that's where that money went to.
That's right. That's right. So another friend of mine set me up with an apartment complex in there in town. They had a maintenance position that was available, and they said, "Hey, come work 20 hours a week for us, and we'll cut you a deal on the rent." So I got my first apartment through that about a week or a week and a half later, and started doing maintenance work for them, everything from changing filters to changing, cleaning toilets and just whatever it took to fill those 20 hours. And so that's where. So then I got the apartment and started there, and then I wasn't. I was working it out back in California, like I said, but I hadn't been accepted there either at the new one. And so I just showed up and I was like, hey, I worked for, last year and a half, 2 years at this restaurant, similar restaurant, right? Different state, but can I come work for you? And I was able to get the job there and started waiting tables and working maintenance at this apartment complex for a little while.
Yeah. And Arkansas, I believe, is known as the land down under. So that's perfect that you would be at Outback. It's not actually, but that's okay. So the law. Every kid growing up wants to be an attorney. I think that's how it works.
Yeah. Sure.
But how did you develop a passion for the law? What drew you to that when you were at Arkansas?
I'll start to develop that passion. I would tell you the only reason I went to law is because I wanted to be in federal law enforcement.
Okay.
I wanted to get in the FBI, 12, whatever years ago it was that I was in, undergrad. Federal law enforcement, for whatever reason, I developed a passion for criminal justice. That was my major in undergrad. And I interned for the U.S. Marshals in college, and they said, hey, don't be a U.S. Marshal, go be an FBI agent. And the main way you're going to be able to do is go to law school. There's only 4 or 5 ways to get in. One of those is through getting a law degree. So I said, okay, I guess I'll try that. Not wanting to practice law ever. Just wanting it is get my foot in the door for the FBI. And so I took the LSATs and got my scores back and got them back too late. Got them back, I would say, March, April, maybe of the year I wanted to get into law school.
Oh.
And so most schools already had rolling admissions. So Arkansas had already closed their admissions because they already had enough applicants that hit metrics and otherwise, and they accepted. So their class was closed and I didn't want to wait. So that's how I ended up at Creighton. Creighton had some spots and I was like, well, I don't even know where Nebraska is, but let me go find out. I've never been to Omaha. I know it's somewhere in the middle. I know it snows. I like snow. Let's go see about this. And, so that's how I ended up at Creighton.
Okay.
But yeah, I never intended to practice law. I just wanted to get into federal law enforcement is the reason I went to law school.
Okay. So, all right. So that is interesting because John and I are both big Creighton fans. My grandfather was actually on the last football team at Creighton.
And my wife played basketball at Creighton.
Correct. Yeah. So we're glad you ended up at Creighton.
Yeah.
Go Blue Jays.
That's right.
So you took the leap of faith, you come to Omaha, and this is something we share in common here. And I met my wife, Amy, at the College World Series, and we have our unique story. And it sounds like you met your wife there too.
I did. I sure did at the College World Series. And, I talk about my passion for Arkansas, right? I was packed up, ready to go home. And I met her the summer I graduated law school, and my fate was sealed. It was from ever forward, Nebraska's home for me because I met her that summer I graduated. So
wonderful.
Yeah. Met her at the College World Series. I just been wonderful. When was that? Yeah, 2013, I guess, when we met, and married a couple of years later, and married ever since. 3 kids and no dog yet, but as it goes, the minivan, the house, all the rest of it.
Right. Well, and that's.
Did you turn in the U-Haul yet? That's what I want to know.
Back.
Okay, good, because that rent would probably be very high.
I think I lost the deposit, but the U-Haul went back. So.
Gotcha. Just check it.
So now this is interesting because it's a good thing you met Mallory because you were waitlisted at Creighton, you said, for about 3 years. So tell me that experience while you were waitlisted.
Well, so I wouldn't, there wasn't a wait list at Creighton. I got into Creighton. There was a wait. So let me step back. When I applied for Creighton, there was a wait list at the time to get in. So rolling admissions we talked about, right? Rolling admissions, I was waitlisted in a spot open and it said, come in this year if you want to. So I was there for 3 years, graduated. When I got out, she played a huge vital role because I had no job and no career, no real future at that point in time, right? I had this law degree, but I did
promise there's a lot more leaps of faith.
The inspiration is coming in a minute here.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So I I graduated, and that summer you study for the bar. So I studied to take the bar. And while I was taking the bar, you do not, treat it like a job, right? You study 10 hours a day, and you go to sleep and study 10 hours a day. And just, that was the routine for those, that summer. And at the time I was living with a buddy of mine, and for whatever reason, I couldn't live at his house anymore, and I had no place to live. And so her mom took me in, and actually I lived at her mom's house, having known her for 3 months. I lived at her mom's house on the floor on my mattress.
You can't make this up.
Wow. It's a trusting mother.
It is, oh my goodness, best mother-in-law you can imagine. And not mother-in-law at the time, right? Just as she met this bum, and knew me for 3 months and said, yeah, you can come live at the house. So I did. And so I passed the bar, in Iowa is where I first took the bar, passed the bar. Then I waved over to Nebraska. So now I'm licensed in 2 states now. But still was just a hard market and a hard time to find a job. And the government had a hiring freeze at the time. So the FBI was not taking applicants at the time. All right. So the whole goal was law school, FBI, but there were no applications. There was nothing to, and I'm like, well, I'm sitting here, sleeping on the floor on my mattress. I better go out and become a lawyer, right? I better go out and become an attorney. And so it was still tough. The market was hard. And so for 6, 8, 9 months after I graduated, I wasn't employed at a firm or anywhere. And so I was helping her brother. Her brother had a business at the time, cleaning out houses that had been foreclosed by banks. And so people would abandon the houses, and we had to get them cleaned out so the banks could sell them or otherwise. And so I worked with them for, whatever that period of time was, to pay some bills and, put a little milk in the fridge while I'm rent free at the house here until I got my first break.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So when we come back, the inspiration is coming. Excuse me. Yeah, you. Thanks so much for listening to Financial Flight Academy. We hope you're enjoying it so far. If you have any questions or would like to talk more about this topic, you can find us at soarwealthstrategies.com. And all of our social media platforms are listed in the show notes. So we're back with Nick Montague. And Nick, you finally get your opportunity to practice law. What was your first focus in the law, and how did that job end up?
Yeah, it was workers' comp defense. So that's where I started out. So if anybody doesn't know workers' comp defense or workers' comp, you get injured on the job, you want your employer to pay for your injury, right? And the laws say every body part you have is worth a value to somebody. And so they've got these manuals out there.
There's a table.
That's a table. That's right. So it's what's my pinky finger worth? And so my job was to say, you think your pinky's broken, but I don't think it is. And we're not paying the claim. And this is why. And so that's workers' comp defense. And there's a lot of medical record review and a lot of adversarial type work there. And, not really what I love to do, but, it was a job and, had a paycheck coming in and every 2 weeks and all that. And didn't last too long. I was, until 90 days, I went out to lunch and I went out and I had a burrito. I had a wonderful lunch. It was a Friday. And I came back and I swiped my card to the parking garage and it doesn't open. I thought, well, that's kind of strange. Something's going on in the parking garage here. And hit the little button. I get my ticket and I park and I go upstairs and I go into, my manager at the time. I went in his office and said, hey, the parking garage, something messed up. My key card doesn't work anymore. He says, oh, that's strange. But hey, I want you to come down here to this partner's office. We got to have a talk with you. Well, that's interesting. Is it time for a review? It's only been 90 days. What kind of review is this? And I walk in and, we sit down and there's people around the table and you don't think it's going to go well. And it didn't go well. And it was sorry, you haven't hit the billable hour requirement for the first 3 months here. Here's your pink slip. You're done. Yeah. And so I walked back and I filled up the box with my, my belongings that were at the desk and I was gone. And that was the end of it. That was my big break. My big break lasted 90 days.
That's why I always check my key here to the building multiple times a day, just in case.
If I could figure out how to change that lock,
I know.
it would be
exactly.
Yeah, some trouble.
I'm nervous to this day. Every time you hit the key card somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was the big break. Yep. That's where it started.
Feeling a lot of love there.
Yeah.
The way it sounds.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, not wanting to be an attorney initially. And that was my first,
So Nick, tell me now how you got into the practice you're doing now with estate planning. Tell me how that began.
Well, another story. I was riding my motorcycle. I was in middle of Iowa. I was actually in Atlantic, Iowa, not quite the middle, but I was out there with my father-in-law. We were riding our motorcycles and ran into a friend of his who was a financial advisor. And he and I just started chatting and I was kind of telling him my background and my experiences in the law. And he recommended for me to reach out to an attorney here in Omaha who had a position open with his estate planning law firm. And so I went back home and looked up what estate planning was. And so I reached out, and it was actually, this is funny. It was the second time my resume had come across his desk. We had some other mutual connections, and interviewed and went well, at least to the extent that he hired me, and I caught on and really found a passion for estate planning. What I found is that estate planning is about relationships more than documents. And so I was really able to help people tell their story. And that's what estate planning comes down to at the end of the day is, everybody wants to be the hero of their own story. And so how do you help them do that? And how do you really help them think through the pitfalls and what are they not considering and the impacts of what they're doing and how can they be intentional with giving? And so I think through all my, days gone by, other jobs that I had, it was always servicing people or serving folks, and estate planning gave me the opportunity to do that. And so I just love that about it. And it is a legal field, and there are laws and there are things to comply with, right? To get right? There are those things. But really it's about helping people. And so I just absolutely fell in love with it. And it's the area I've been in ever since. Probably 8 years now I've been practicing this particular area. So that's where the passion came in. It wasn't, I'm passionate about law. I didn't wake up at 5 years old and say, I want to be an attorney and carry a briefcase. Right. But through the years it was, serving people is what I love to do. And that's it allows me to do that, being a estate planning attorney.
So now you're a big deal and you're a partner over at Smith Pauley.
Big deal. Wow. I don't think they would tell you that, but I have a partner at Smith Pauley. Yeah. Yeah. I got over there in August. So I've been with a couple of the firms here.
Why the move there?
What's great about them, that they want to be disruptors, and they are. They want to disrupt the traditional practice of law, which is so tied to the desk and so tied to the billable hours. And it really doesn't allow for the free flow of thought, right? It doesn't allow for us to sit around and talk about how we can best serve clients, because we're so attached to hitting that buzzer, right? Hitting that 6-minute mark on the email or whatever it is. And so they're disruptive in that perspective, in that we're not tied to this huge giant, you have to build 2,500 hours a year type scenario. And so it just allows us to not only get clients to, there's a difference in getting clients to a right decision or a decision and or result, rather a result or the right result, right? There's differences there, because I can get you to a result, but in 5 years from now, it might be, we could have taken a different road 5 years ago and had a better end result, down the road here. And so we can get you to, a result here, but have we really thought through the 5, the 10, the 15, the 20-year plan, what this looks like? I mean, we helped you start the business, but if we talked about the growth and bringing on partners and how we're going to sell it and how we're going to, finance it, and how we're going to do these other things, if we're not thinking about those, then we've gotten you to a result, but probably not the right result for you. And so our model allows us to really be innovative and be forward thinking with our clients. And so that's the exciting part about Smith Pauley, is it really is a different approach to client interactions and a different approach to practicing law that you're just not going to find other places. And that's what I love about it.
It is so refreshing that approach is out there, because I can't tell you how many times we talk to clients, John, about let's come and sit down and talk to an estate planning attorney. And right away is, well, how much is it going to cost per hour?
Right.
Or
right.
What's it going to cost me to do that? That, we don't ever want that to be a roadblock.
Well, no, and it's such an important part. As someone who has gone through an estate nightmare with an uncle of mine, it's just not something you want to leave to chance or a probate court or leaving your loved one a mess, which is, you just see it too often. I'm sure you see it a lot, Nick, too. But
yeah, we see the pitfalls of reactive planning, right? We want to be proactive when our planning. We want to make sure we're sitting down with clients and talking through scenarios and talking through situations and talking through goals and really helping them get from A to Z. And that's the approach we take with folks, is because we've all seen it in our professional careers, the reactive planning, that something has happened, right, and now we have to do something, right?
Well, yeah. And so what are some of those things that you see are pretty common mistakes that people make when it comes to estate planning? So, and just to be clear, when we talk about estate planning, sometimes it's something as simple as a will, which should include powers of attorney for financial powers of attorney, healthcare power of attorney. And, if people want it, most people should have a living will in there, I think. Not speaking for you.
Your legal opinion there?
Maybe it's not appropriate for everyone. But again, having been in the situation of that person who maybe has to make a decision on life, it's good that those things are stated somewhere. So what are some of those common mistakes that people see?
I'll tell you, yeah, the two biggest ones we see: continuity and communication. Right there's not a lot of times you run into a situation where a plan's been put in place, but there's been no communication. There's been no communication with our decision makers. Right, we get anytime we start a estate plan, it's, hey, who is our power of attorney? Who's the individual I trust to make a decision for my finances and my medical if I can't, or my spouse or whoever can't do that for me? Who's this person I trust? And maybe I've named somebody, but they might not know, right? What if they don't have the documents that say, hey, you're in control and something happens to me and I'm incapacitated? Well, how in the world are they going to know that it's their job to go talk to a doctor or call you guys because we got to pay a bill or do something? And so a lack of communication, not only with the folks that we have put in these different roles, but sometimes it's the generational lack of communication. The next generation, the kids that are going to inherit the farm ground or the business or whatever it is, not communicating to them, how the plan is set up or who are the important people to go talk to when something happens to me. And the other piece of the communication we see or we miss or is missed is the communication among other professionals that the individual is working with. One of the unique things, the way you guys set this up, is you build a team around your clients, right? And so there's not a lack of communication there. There's not a pitfall there because the right arm knows what the left arm's doing, right? But we run into situations where, again, great, we've got this plan in place, but if we can't have a conversation with a CPA, if we can't have the conversation with a financial advisor, if we can't have a conversation with these other important folks that are a part or should be a part of this team, we can lose sight of what the ultimate goal is for the client. And so that building a team around the client is so incredibly vital. And that's where you see that communication loss. One of the big issues, and that continuity planning is kind of falls in that same realm of, if we haven't discussed how we're going to get there, how are we going to make it, right?
That's a great point. And I've done so many of these meetings with you. Give the listeners a quick example of how your meetings typically go here as far as introductory meetings.
Yeah. So typically what we do, we sit down and we want to cover four different areas, right? The first area, we want to understand the family dynamic. Okay. So that means we want to understand your relationship. If you're married with a spouse, we want to understand what your careers and your goals look like. We want to understand when it is you want to walk away so we can help plan for that from work, not from each other. We want to make sure.
Well, you never know.
Whoa. We want to talk about kids. We want to talk about we really want to dig deep and understand the dynamic of the family situation. And once we understand that, we want to think about the assets that are out there. Every plan looks different based on situations, but we want to make sure those assets work in conjunction with whatever sort of plan is put in place, right? The ownership of your assets, the beneficiaries you designate, they all play a huge role. And we want to make sure that works in conjunction with the plan that's on paper. We can have the best plan and paper in the world, but if our assets don't work in conjunction with that, the paper's not worth what it's written on for accomplishing your goals. And so we talk through the assets, where they are, who owns them, what current beneficiaries look like. At the end of the day, we think through, okay, if the bus got you tomorrow, here's what's passing. And we want to think about that net worth number because that helps sometimes drive what your planning goals look like, right? If you can say, okay, if I went tomorrow, the insurance comes in and this comes in and there's equity in the house, and these are real values that are going to go to my beneficiaries, it helps you be intentional with your giving. And once we've identified family dynamics, once we've identified assets, what that looks like, then we talk through what your goals are. Okay. Is it just getting it down to beneficiaries? Is it controlling the when and the how and the if it comes out? Is it making sure there's some oversight on the finances? What does that look like to you and what's important to you? And what are you trying to convey? What are you trying to pass to those beneficiaries outside of just assets, right? It's not always here's the dollar. It's not always here's the check. It's what values were important to you and how do you instill that in the next generation? And then once we've identified the goals, then we talk through how we can accomplish that for you based on where you are. We're here in Nebraska or Iowa, wherever it is we're planning at the time, how we can accomplish that for you. What's the best method to accomplish those goals? What are the differences in the wills and trusts and powers of attorney? And we approach it from an educational standpoint. If people walk away from the table and they have in more than one occasion with nothing more than an education, I think we win. At the end of the day, if they never engage me, but they walk out with more knowledge around estate planning, I think everybody wins. And so that's really the approach I think we take in most of our meetings. So, we spend an hour and a half, 2 hours to go through these different areas with folks and make sure we're getting the results based on their goals.
Yeah. So I think the bottom line here for folks is if you want to make sure that your assets are protected, your family communications is on the same page, which many times we know that is not the case. And that your wealth transfer is seamless, that it's done the way that you want it to do. Families should make sure that they have their estate plan in place. Brent, you and I, for years, this has just been a part of what we do. we do regularly monthly scheduled meetings with estate planning attorneys.
Absolutely. I mean, and you hit the nail on the head, Nick. Education. We want to do these regularly scheduled meetings every month here in our office. We feel that estate planning is an overall foundational piece of the puzzle. And that's part of our comprehensive planning here at Soar Wealth Strategies. So, if you'd like to get a hold of us here, or, Smith Pauley Law Firm, located in beautiful downtown Omaha, 3555 Farnham Street, Suite 1000. You can also get them on the website at www.smithpauley.com. And local phone number, area code 402-392-0101.
And we've got an offer for folks here today, Brent.
Do tell.
If you'd like a little more information on how to get the conversation about estate planning started, you can call our office. Our number here is 531-867-3400, and mention this podcast and just ask for the estate planning questionnaire. And Penny and Karen can get that out to you. It's a great resource, provides a lot of thought-provoking questions to get that conversation going about protecting not only your assets, but your family as well. So I think that's a great thing to offer. Nick, it's been great having you on Financial Flight Academy. How are you going to deal with this fame?
I'm not sure it's going to be tough, but I appreciate the time to come in and talk with you guys. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to partner with you guys and what you do, because I think you provide a heck of a service for clients talking through these things, because a lot of people get tripped up over it because they don't know the where or the when or the how to start, but you guys give them a start by, I appreciate the opportunity to come and partner with you guys and have this conversation. And, what you guys do for your clients is such a service, because a lot of people get tripped up on the when and the how and to start the plan, right? But you're offering a service where you're going to bring someone and talk to them about this, and we get over those hurdles pretty easily. But thank you for the opportunity to partner with you guys and for your time today.
Well, thank you for your story. Your story is certainly inspiring. Talk about someone that took a leap of faith, and I think you turned out pretty darn well with $1,000 in an old Chevy Blazer. And just remember, if you like this podcast, please share it with someone you care about. We would certainly like an opportunity to help families build a plan, work with Nick and Smith Pauley. Visit our website, soarwealthstrategies.com. Also, you can find us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And
I think they call it the Twitter.
Twitter?
Yeah,
the Twitter?
Maybe not. All right.
And until next time, we episode 6 coming up next.
So thanks for joining us on Financial Flight Academy.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Flight Academy podcast. Click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. Visit our website at soarwealthstrategies.com. Or give us a call at 531-867-3400. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Soar Wealth Strategies. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service providers with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning. Securities and advisory services offered through Commonwealth Financial Network, member FINRA SIPC, a registered investment advisor.